Hello, if you're a listener of Bring Your Product Idea to Life, you might like to know that I'm running a free call on Thursday the 26th of February for anyone who's selling products on Amazon or planning to and would like some practical support and a chance to talk things through together. I know so many Amazon sellers and I thought it'd be really nice to bring people together. It'll be a really relaxed session. I'll be sharing a few updates on upcoming Amazon changes and there'll be plenty of time for questions and discussion about what's working, what's not, anything you want to chat about Amazon related. You're very welcome to come along and talk, or you can just listen in. I would love to see you there if you're able to join, and you'll find the link to book your place in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the Bring Your Product Idea to Life podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're getting started selling products or if you'd like to create your own product to sell. I'm Vicky Weinberg, a product creation coach and Amazon expert. Every week I share friendly, practical advice as well as inspirational stories from small businesses. Let's get started. Hi, today on the podcast, I'm speaking with Anna Scaife, a jewellery designer and the founder of Anna Lou of London. Anna has spent 25 years building a 7-figure jewellery business from her houseboat workshop, and she also works as a trauma-informed coach helping people with healing and personal transformation. This was such a great and full conversation. Anna shares how she got stopped in Harvey Nichols after being spotted in a London market stall, having a store in Carnaby Street and concessions in lots of high street stores, plus issues that led to her dramatically changing how she runs her business. There are plenty of highs, plenty of lows, but this is a really fascinating story with so much to learn. I would love now to introduce you to Anna. So hi Anna, thank you so much for being here.
Hi Vicky, how are you doing? You good? Thank
Really
you for
good,
having
thank
me.
you.
Good.
So can we please start by you giving an introduction to yourself, your business and what you sell?
So I'm Anna from Anna Lou of London Jewellery, and I've been creating and designing jewellery for over 21 years now. And I also am a trauma-informed coach. So I do some business coaching for people who have personal issues that they need to help themselves get over to be able to move their business forward. So yeah, I wear 2 different hats. Well, actually, and I'm a mum of 3, so I wear multiple different hats. A single mum of 3, I should say.
Oh wow, lots of hats.
Yes, exactly.
So you mentioned, Anna, that you've been running your brand for more than 20 years, and I know that it all started at Portobello Market. So can you please talk a little bit, first of all, about what those early days were like, and maybe how selling your jewellery from a market shaped the way you built your business as it went on?
Yeah, so I started on Portobello Market right at the beginning, and I had absolutely no experience of making jewellery at all. And I made some bracelets, which I just thought, well, I'll just see how they go. And I asked somebody who's actually, I rekindled with her only recently, and she said, I never forget you turning up with your little suitcase, and you said, can I share the end of your table? And she gave me the end of her table on Portobello Road, and she said, oh my God, you just sold so many of them. And then she said, and I just had this feeling they were going to be successful when the Harvey Nichols buyer came by, a few weeks later and snapped them all up. So it was one of those incredible moments that I didn't really appreciate at the time, but it was definitely a step towards helping me to build a brand. But it wasn't, I was completely untrained, to be honest.
So you mentioned that you'd never made jewellery before. So how did you even get started? And what inspired you to as well, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I've always been creative. I've always been making things. And I just thought, I was working all these different jobs, you're at the age where you're just doing everything and anything. And I just thought, well, actually, I really just want to do my own thing. So I made these bracelets and that was it really. And then they sold out in Harvey Nichols within a few weeks. And then they came to me and said, could you show us your next collection? And I thought, oh my God, I don't even know what next collection is. So I said, no problem. So ended up making some necklaces and earrings and they sold out. They did really well. And then from there, so, the other department stores were interested. So it just took off from there really.
And so how did you get stopped in Harvey Nichols? Did they literally just see you in the market?
Yeah. So they literally the buyer was just walking past the market. So that was the initial I guess, opportunity. Right place, right time. Universe had my back. And yeah, and then I guess, obviously the products had to be good quality and they had to be at the right price. And there was obviously all those factors. And they just happened to be, which was great.
Well, that's amazing. And yet, like you say, what luck all the stars must have aligned to you that day.
Yeah.
Um, but coming back to like the really beginnings, how did you learn to even make jewelry? Because to be a complete beginner, and what am I right in thinking you got stopped by Harvey Nichols fairly early on as well?
Yeah, it was about probably about 3 months into making. Yeah, 3 months in, I'd say. It was very early on. But yeah, I learned pretty quickly. I mean, I'm not a silversmith and I never have pretended to be or said I was. I am a designer and I do make the pieces. So I make pieces here now. So I have a laser machine. I do the engraving. I do beading, but I still don't do casting and I don't do silversmithing. I work with another workshop in Hatton Garden that does that. So, but I am naturally very good at like seeing a commercial opportunity, marketing, PR, those sort of things. I am that's kind of where I guess that's where my skills lie. And I'm not afraid I don't care if people say no to things. It doesn't bother me. So yeah, I guess it's having, I remember actually when I was making everything and I had all these people in my workshop, and I had like, I used to put ads in for, people to come and help. String beads onto multiple different styles of necklaces. And I never forget, like, a few of the girls used to be a bit like, well, is this really it? And because they'd obviously done sort of high end jewellery courses. And I was a bit like, yeah, we're selling in some really good stores. So this is it. And I know that there are obviously incredible, and I've developed into that now into having, very, very intricate pieces and very, very quirky designs. But at the beginning, it literally was beads on string and beads on the necklaces, and that was selling well. And we were making it all, but there was a little bit of a like, oh, is this really it? Kind of attitude at times. So I was just trying to teach people as well, like actually, it's not just about the product; it's about the whole journey. It's the marketing behind it all.
It
Is that
also makes
helpful?
total sense to me to start as you did, because I think so many people can, and myself, I'm definitely guilty of this, can think, oh, we need to do all the training and learn all the things and go on the courses before we can start. So
Yeah.
I think actually starting with something simple that you were able to do, to me, makes a lot of sense, because otherwise you could have wasted potentially a couple of years if you thought, oh, I need to go to college or I need to do whatever it was until you were in a position to start. So I think that says to me is that you were like, okay, I'm just going to get going and figure it out as I go.
Yeah. And I'm not afraid of asking other people that I know are better than me and actually I do think that that's something that's made the business grow quite quickly, is that I knew when I was selling. I had a concession in Topshop. I had a shop in Carnaby Street, and it was really busy, and I was doing about £2 million, £2.5 million a year selling these pieces. It was, I mean, I was absolutely, to be honest, I was over trading because it ended up being that I had so many sales, but I had also so much stock. So there was a bit of a downside to all of this glory. But I ended up employing people that were better than me at so many things. I know that I'm good at the marketing, the commercial side of things, seeing a good product, getting into meeting the buyers, talking to them, showing them the good designs. And when I went to Tokyo, I got asked to go as one of the accessories designers to their British embassy, like a showcase thing that they did for Stella McCartney did it, and there was loads of different British brands that were invited to go. And I sold about £1 million worth of jewellery in about 4 days, which was intense. And I'd got into all of these amazing stores. And I'm telling you, it was nothing to do with the product. Yes, the product was quirky, but it was, it was quite kawaii, which is that Japanese sort of style. But I think the reason it is that we were in the British Embassy. We had a table. We were all given a table. And I remember thinking, how am I going to be different to the other designers here? How am I going to stand out? So I put on a little British apron. I looked like something out of like a little tea lady. And I had this funny little crown on my head and a little shoe, like English sort of, I basically dressed up, and then I had I created the crown logo, and it was obviously Anna Lou of London, and it was all red, white and blue, and it was just really commercial. And I think that just caught people's eye. So once you're in, you can then deliver. I had a concession in Isetan at that point, which is quite a big department store, and Takashimaya. And once you're in, you can then play around with it and bring in other pieces. But it was just knowing how to get seen from a commercial aspect at the time.
Yeah, no, I like that story. It does make a lot of sense because you're right. I guess you weren't the only jewellery brand there, so you had to stand out from everybody else.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's always something to remember. So I know that lots of founders, have dreams of being stocked in big retailers. So you were stocked in Selfridges, Harvey Nichols, and plenty of others. What did you learn from that experience?
So I learned from a lot. A lot of it, I actually don't do so much wholesale. I'm going to start doing wholesale again, but I decided not to do much more wholesale after years of that, because I realized it's so labor intensive. It was spreadsheets after spreadsheets. It was stock was getting lost. It was things were getting stolen from the stores, and I had to cover those costs. It just was marketing. It was a marketing exercise. And I realized my ego at the beginning, when I had this concession had 2 concessions in Selfridges. One when I did a collaboration for with Disney, and one when I had my own concession, and you go in there at 3:00 in the morning, and yet that's your time to set up. And you're absolutely on your knees, and you've got this little space, and it's fun, and it feels fun at the time, but there is a lot of pressure to sell, obviously, a lot of products. But the problem is that the margin is so huge. It is really huge for them and not for the wholesaler. But it does work for loads of people, and I'm not dissing wholesaling. You've just got to be prepared to know that it's a marketing exercise, I think, in my opinion.
That makes sense. Do you see it more as a way of getting found by different customers?
Yeah. And my website was really busy from having, definitely. And I think that's what made me go, well, hang on, and my website's really busy. I've got lots of direct sales here. What's the point of doing? And I was pregnant with my first child. And then I thought, well, what's the point of doing all of this hard, it just felt like I was walking up a hill in flip-flops, like it was really hard work. And I'm not shy of hard work. It's just, I felt like I was a bit of a busy fool at times. So, I just decided to go directly to consumer and just sell directly on my own website, which has been great because I built an audience from being in those stores. So it's definitely had, and I built a brand from being in those stores, but it got to the point where there was an expiry date, and it was like, well, I either take investment and really scale it, but I was also a mum, about to be a mum, and I ended up being a mum to got 3 children, and went through a horrendous divorce. So actually, having not done the wholesale, having stopped the wholesale, it probably meant that I could be a bit more hands-on.
Yeah, and that's really important.
Yeah, for me. But some people,
Yeah.
and some people just would have been, I mean, I know loads of brands that at the same time took the investment, and they're huge now. Say no names. They're huge now. But I still think there's never say never, you know. It's just very difficult because if I want to take investment now, I've come up against a few hurdles, which is, I think this is female founder issue, which it's really hard because people go, well, hang on a minute, you were doing like people, I mean investors that tend to be of the same type. They sort of go, well, you had a really successful business. I can see, you know, the numbers were amazing. And then you had children and then the numbers dropped massively. And then they sort of went up and down and up and down. So is this really a sustainable business? Well, it is. It's because it's obviously still got still a brand, a very successful brand. But it is hard to maintain those numbers without investment and being hands-on mum, factually.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like sort of being a mum and spending time with your children is important to you.
Yes, I mean, for me, that was, yeah, you have to put your values first. And that's actually why, you know, I'm proud of the fact that I can be with them. And that's something that I have always wanted. I've always wanted to be there as much as I possibly can. Because for me, you know, I realize time is short. My eldest is already 15. I'm like, oh my God, it's nearly done. So nearly off to college, and you know, it's very, so anyway, so I feel huge gratitude for the fact that I tailored my life that way, but it's not without its huge rebirths, I'm going to call them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we spoke earlier, you were talking about scaling your business. So I know one example that I read about was that you had a week where you delivered, I think it was £48,000 worth of jewellery.
Yeah.
That sounds like an enormous undertaking. How did you decide to, like, that was the thing you wanted to do, that it was a yes? And what did it take to actually deliver that?
So that was a really, really interesting story. So that was quite early on, actually, and it was, I'd been asked to do a collaboration with the high street store Reese, and they interviewed me and they asked me to design some pieces around their collection. So I came back with the designs and the sketches and the samples that I'd made in my bedroom, but they didn't know that. I think they thought I was bigger than I was. And so I went to meet them and they said, so what's the most amount of pieces that you could make, that your brand can make in a week? And I said, oh, you know, 50,000. I just made it up, even though I was still working from my bedroom. So yeah, and then about literally 2 weeks later, I get this £48,000 order. So I was straight on the plane to China. So I had to go and get them made overseas to be able to hit the price points that they wanted. So it was a huge risk, but it did, you know, it paid off. And we delivered everything. I had to get loads of samples made in different factories. You know, there was loads and loads of hurdles. I ended up going via India to find the stones that I needed. And, you know, it was just a matter of sort of networking, connecting until you got till the collection was in the stores.
Amazing. Yeah, and I mean, there were so many amazing parts of your story. So at one point, I know your business was making over 1 million in sales, yet, you know, things behind the scenes weren't as good as they perhaps looked on the surface. Can you talk us through what was actually happening during that time?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually doing about 2.5 million. So it was not, but it was behind the scenes. So, like I said just now, I had celebrities wearing the pieces. I was selling in all these amazing stores, but I had so much stock because I needed to fulfill all these orders. But actually, I'd oversold, because the cash flow wasn't there. Because basically, all of these stores, they were giving me like 120 days payment terms. It was getting more and more and more and more. And I had concessions in multiple stores internationally. And the payment terms were just getting longer and longer. And meanwhile, I'm going, right, okay, I've got that stock for there and that stock for there, but I need more of that and more of that. And then you end up getting more from the factory made, and more's delivered. And in the end, I've just got this whole workshop in near Carnaby Street, just full of stock, full of stock to go out to everywhere. And I just felt like I was just shifting stock around the country, around the world. So, if one store wasn't selling something, then we would swap it for something else, and then that would go to another store. And in the end, I was a bit like, hang on a minute, this doesn't really make sense. All we're doing is moving jewellery around the world.
That sounds like a lot of logistics.
Yeah.
And so was that part of your decision to move away from wholesale? Was that a part of it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I also really I didn't really want to be making in China anymore. It didn't feel right for me. I really wanted to make in the UK. It was something I felt that being a brand called Anna of London, it just felt right to be making in the UK. And I was just also quite inquisitive to see if I could do it. And see, it was just something that I'd always dreamt of doing. It was hard at the beginning, and to be honest, everybody was like, you're never going to be able to do it because the price, unless you're selling a product hundreds of pounds and you're a premium designer, you're not going to be able to do it. So in the end, I didn't actually move all of the production to the UK because I came up against loads of blocks. So I ended up opening a workshop in Turkey, in Istanbul, and I set it up with a family, and we kind of went into collaboration together, and we did that for about 3 years, and that was brilliant, really brilliant, because I could do some of it here, some of it there, and it was just it just worked really well for everyone, for all of us, and actually that really helped me kind of through the divorce and through the difficult times. It was quite nice because I could just go when I wasn't seeing the children on because their dad would have them Wednesday to Sunday every other week. And, I would, for the first 6 months, I'd cry every single time they left. And then after a while, I'd be like, well, I'm going to go to the workshop. And then the time would fly so fast. And, I'd be so busy designing and creating and doing marketing. And before I knew it, it was Monday and I was picking them up from school again.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess it's just another example of how you've been able to have a family and run your business as well on terms that work for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely has. I think the key takeaway for the listeners would be energy, and I think that is energy and practicality, because I do believe despite being through so many difficult times, I have found when I know that I'm going down into that like doldrums, I somehow manage to do something to find the energy to remember what I love and what is my purpose. And I think having the business has been hugely beneficial for my purpose and for my drive. And that's why during even the hardest times, I still love delivering really good pieces to people and designing new collections. So I still absolutely love it. There's not one part of me that goes, I mean, business is like a relationship. Of course, you're going to have a month or so where you like, I flipping hate this business. Why am I doing it? And then you suddenly fall in love with it again a month later. And it is like a relationship, in my opinion. And it's completely normal. But overall, I absolutely love the opportunities it's given me, the travel it's given me, the challenges it's given me. I would sort of say that my ex-husband and my business have been my gurus. It's kind of got me through all of the difficult times, because I'm just like, if you hadn't have pushed me this hard, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Oh, that's a really lovely outlook on sort of going through hard times. I really like that.
Yeah, I just not twist it, that's the wrong word. Just reframing it
Yeah.
and really meaning that, because I genuinely remember thinking, woe is me, victim, 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 my business. I remember like having to put all this stock, like when I moved from the shop, I had to put it all into this like storage container, and I just felt like everything was falling apart, and it was just, and it was life was just not fair. And when you sort of go into that victim mode, and it's like victim, 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 and then you can't get out of it. And it's actually not so bad if you just like, this is really exciting. Where are we going next with this? And that's definitely the outlook. And I think positivity is something which you need to really, really, which you can get, but you can, I was going to say get, you can sort of refine that if you, and it's going to sound really basic, but sleeping well and eating well and, and makes you think, will help you make you think straight. And then you realize what your purpose is, and you realize what makes you feel joyful. And it's such simple things, even if it's just doing an Instagram post. I mean, I don't know, that's for some people. There's simple things. And I think making jewelry and creating jewelry and designing jewelry and fiddling around and being creative, I just love. Doesn't matter where I am in my nervous system, or I know that I'm going to feel happy and safe if I'm in my workshop in Turkey or in London or wherever I am designing.
I think thank you for sharing that, and I think that is really important, and I think knowing, like, what are the things that you need, because for everyone it's different, but what are the
Yeah.
things that you need to keep yourself happy or to lift you out of a low mood? It's just yeah, it's really good to know those things. Like, for me, it's exercise. If I'm feeling a bit low, the best thing I can do is move, even if that's just to go for a walk.
Yeah.
There's something about moving that just kind of, I don't know, releases something.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that when we also, especially running businesses, we have a lot of fear all the time. When are we going to hit the numbers? What's going to happen? Is that going to work? Am I wasting my time? All these like fear questions come in, and I have had years of that. But I've through experience, I know that the universe knows the plan over and above me. And yes, I am quite spiritual in my outlook, and it's not everyone's outlook, but I know that it's always going to be okay. It's always going to be okay. And because there is a plan. But if you force and change and grip and mold and coerce and all of those things, that plan, and I've done that many times. I've done that many, many, many times. Then the plan isn't going to go the way and then, you're going to go down a few roads that you're not meant to be going down. And I'm definitely the queen of that. So now I just let the light just flow through, and I know that I know it's all going to be okay. And incredibly, it is at the moment. It's flowing really nicely, and it's only when you grip and you force and you fear and you're fearful, then it's all gone wrong for me in the past when I've done that.
Oh, I really love that. Thank you. I
That's
genuinely,
okay.
yeah, I really do resonate with that. I like that a lot. If we don't mind, we're going to change subject slightly if that's
Yeah.
okay. So I wanted to talk to you about cash flow, because I know, like, in your journey, you've mentioned there have been times when cash flow has been hard. For anyone listening, are there any early warning signs that something needs attention, that maybe your cash flow isn't where it could be? Because I think it's one of those things that sometimes we realize when we can't pay a bill or we can't pay ourselves. Is there anything that that you've picked up on that is a early indicator that maybe something isn't quite right?
Um, an early indicator for me was really early was when somebody said, "Oh, you can do this thing called factoring, where you can get payment up front for an invoice that's due to be paid later." And um, if I'm on it, I think I did that, years ago. But I just remember just not really knowing what I was doing. I was really inexperienced with the numbers, and I have to say, I think that the most important bit of advice I can give anyone from someone who has definitely got, I find I have to really now look at data. And that's bank. Like I do look at the bank account, but I know, obviously, like all the time, but I know that money flows and money is just energy. And I think I don't really know what advice to give on that. I think that's why I changed as well from wholesale to mostly made to order, because the cash flow is there. People are paying for the product before you've even made it. So that was just a no-brainer. It took the stress out of it. I found the cash flow really, really stressful, which is why I ended up losing the shop and why I ended up, putting all this stock in this storage unit. And it was so stressful at that time. And it was all because of cash flow, because I was over trading. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does. Thank you. And obviously, I don't expect you or anyone else who comes on to be like the expert in any topic, but it's always really useful to hear other people's perspectives and experiences, because we can all learn from that.
Yeah, I mean, I've only got my experience, which is, the made to order model now, and which again is, it's more sustainable. I was really just hating stepping over boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of products that I was like, where the hell am I going to be selling this? And I was selling stuff from TK Maxx, and then I was sending stuff to some places in France, and just the whole, it just didn't feel aligned. Just that was it, really. Just felt. And now I just know where we're at, and I have got some products that I do sell that I've made a couple of, but not normally more than that, because obviously with jewellery, necklaces fine, but with jewellery, even necklaces, people want different lengths, and rings, they want different sizes. So and I just love giving people the opportunity to make it really personal, because much more than when my brand was really big, personalization and wearing a piece of jewellery is an extension of your personal growth. I don't believe that we should just be wearing a gold chain just because it's a gold chain. If it's something that means something because of a certain reason, or I just believe that there's needs to be a purpose behind the product, and you can infuse it with that light and love and the reason why you're wearing it to take you on into the day. And I just know that the pieces that I was selling in all these big stores, some of them were just really nice pieces of jewelry, but they just had no purpose behind them.
That makes sense, because I do see on your website now there's so many options for people to choose, whether the stone or the metal or the size. Like, there's a lot of options for customization. I think that's really nice, because as you say, jewelry is like an investment, and you want it to be like exactly what you want it to be.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is that I just wanted to be sure that people can message me and say, actually, do you know what? I don't really want the birthstone to be in that location. Can we move it so that it goes there, or whatever it might be? And we can do all that. So yeah, that to me, I mean, people might argue and say, but this, if you're an investor, this isn't really scalable. But I do think it is, with the right marketing strategy behind it. But it also, I've sold on stores, I have tried to sell on Amazon, and I know that you do a lot of work with them. But it is difficult to sell lots of to really personalize on Amazon still. And the other good thing about personalization is that we don't really get returns, because most of the time people will, approve the product, and it's so personal to them that they're really happy with it. They don't just wear it and send it back. And I used to sell in stores like Wolf and Badger, and I actually did TikTok shop for a bit, and you can't sell personalized stuff on there. So I made some stock that was not personalized, and before you knew it, there was returns left, right and center. Nothing wrong with the product, absolutely nothing, but just clicking buttons and sending things back because they can. And it's crippling.
And coming back to what you said at the beginning as well, I think that offering the personalisation does differentiate you from other jewellery brands, because not all brands do that. I know some do, but not
Right.
everyone does. And I think anything you can do, as you say, to stand out and make yourself different is really important.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, definitely. But you know, there is a little time element to that. But I think people don't mind waiting if they know. And I'm talking, you know, I always say, unless something's really highly, like I'm making someone a family crest signet ring at the moment, and you know that'll take a good 2-3 weeks to create, but they don't mind waiting. You know, they really don't mind. I've actually know people that have bought bracelets from other brands similar to my brands, but they don't do so much personalization, but they're still waiting for their product 6 weeks later because it's stuck in the factory in India. I mean, I'm just like, that shouldn't happen this day and age. Like, we don't need to be waiting for pieces to be coming from factories in bulk. It's just unnecessary, in my opinion. We could just make something, have it made from a nice small brand in the UK and have it done much quicker.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And while we're on the subject of time, let's talk a little bit about pricing, if that's okay, because I
Yeah.
think pricing is always interesting for products that are made. I mean, are there, or do you see hidden costs and factors in costing jewellery? Because I think it's obviously not just the cost of the materials, there's also the time, that the work that goes into it. Can you speak a little bit to that, please? Because I think that pricing is something that I get asked about a lot because it's something that can be really difficult to figure out.
Um, yeah, I guess I guess, um, I guess it always, I don't really know where to go with it because it depends on confidence and some people, it's interesting because some people I speak to now, in fact, I'm doing this collaboration with this lady. I'm just going to give you an example, a story. And she's such a sweetie pie. She does like woven bracelets, like friendship. She does loads of different products. So we're making these personalized name woven bracelets. And she said to me, how much do you think we should sell them for? So I said, well, I think it should be like 75, maybe £80. And she was like, what? She goes, I thought maybe like 10. And I said, what? I said, let's just work this out. I said, you have just sat there weaving this beautiful bracelet on your special little machine in London. You're so talented. And then I've cut out this name on a laser machine I've bought the silver. I've cut it out. I've polished, I've spent time polishing it. You know, getting all the little bits and bobs and tumbling it and everything. So that's quite a lot of hours of work. You know, what do you mean? But then I realized and she said, oh, I just haven't got any self-confidence. And I thought that's what it's down to, really, because she could easily work that out. It doesn't take a mathematician to work out how much time things have taken, but it's confidence.
Yeah, and I think it's also a good
Is that
reminder
what?
that you need to be factoring in the time that you're spending as well as just the materials, because I think that if you were just factoring in the cost of, you know, what it costs to buy the silver and the thread for weaving or
Mm.
whatever, that was come out much lower than if you think, okay, let's say a bracelet takes 2 hours to make. I'm just throwing that out of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
air. You've then got that, and then obviously, but it's not even just the time, is it? It's the craftsmanship. It's everything. And I think
and
when people go,
experience.
yeah, and
Yeah,
when people go to buy a product, they don't. I don't know. You kind of judge it, the price, based on the quality of what you're looking at.
yeah.
I've never looked at something and thought, oh, well, they must have made this in 20 minutes, so it's not worth that price. Do you know
You're
what I mean?
so
You don't
right.
do that, do you? That's not how people buy. But when we're pricing, because I know I've done this myself, when we're pricing, I do think we can tend to go lower if we don't have the confidence, as you said, because we're like, oh, that didn't take me that long, so how can I possibly charge X for it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's about that didn't take me that long. I think have I had it? I've had times where I think that didn't take me that long to make, but that's taken me all these years to create, knowing that that's something that is, you know, knowing that I've got that eye to market a piece, like that's going to be a popular trending item, let's say. So it's the value behind. So it's a bit like, so it's a bit let's say using coaching, for example, like some coaches are really, 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 they're like, thousands of pounds for a day or an hour, or there's masterminds across the X, Y, and Z. And actually, it doesn't, you're paying for their experience. Even if you just get one nugget of information from them, then it's all worthwhile because that can take you on into the future. And it's the same with a piece of jewelry. If it's something that's not going to break and it's going to stay with you for a long time and it's going to make you feel great every time you put it on and you just know it's really good quality, then you can charge a lot of money for it.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think I got the time example probably more from my own experience, because I know that sometimes when I'm charging someone to do some work on their behalf, sometimes I'm like, well, I can do this in 15 minutes. It seems awful to charge them. That's, I think, and that is a confidence thing. But I do think it comes into products as well, because I've come across product business owners who say, oh, I can make however many of these in an hour. And because they can make so many, maybe because it's something, but the reason they can make so many in an hour, let's say, is because they've really honed it. They've been doing it for a long time. They've got really good at it. But then
Yeah.
they'll say, oh, so I can't charge whatever because it didn't take me that long. And I think there's definitely that thing of a lot of us underestimate what it's taken for us to get to the point where we can do something in 15 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, when I have to say, when I was making the pieces in China and I was, let's say, buying an item for, let's for argument's sake, I was buying an item for £2. Okay. So it was low because obviously that's not exact figure, but and I'm talking 15 years ago. It's, prices were quite different, obviously. But then I would then times that by 3 to get my wholesale price. And then the wholesale price would then be times by 10 to get the retail price. So that's the maths that it was for every single piece. And you just think, wow, people are paying this sort of money for whereas I just thought that's not great. Whereas I know that if I could make a piece of jewelry myself and know how much time it's taken me, know that I've got good quality materials, know that it's bespoke, personalized, then, I could probably charge 10 times. But I choose to not do that because I don't want to be like these other big retailers. I might mark up 2 or 3 times so that there's no ridiculous margins, but there's a bit of consistency and integrity.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, thank you, Anna. I've only got a few more questions before we finish, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
No, don't worry. I'm happy to talk about it.
Oh, good. So I know that today you run your business remotely from your houseboat. Is that right?
I do. I'm in the houseboat at the moment, but I have a studio just in the garden, where I do the laser cutting and the engraving and the designing and all of that part. And but I still don't do the polishing here. I still work in Hatton Garden for because polishing is a bit of a special skill. I could do it here, but some of the pieces are really quite intricate. And I also use an experienced stone setter. So yeah, I use different people basically all around Hatton Garden and Birmingham.
So that's obviously a different way of working than when you started out 20 years ago, and over the years where you've had like different premises. And so how does it work for you having, working with the model you have now where you're a bit more remote and you're outsourcing more?
I mean, for me, it fits in with my lifestyle. And I think that's what we have to also remember is that, again, being a single mum. And I sort of have to say that I've been forced down this road because of my own family situation. I knew there was no way that I could maintain the business that I was running because I was also managing really difficult family situation that I needed to be available emotionally for the children. I needed to be available. I needed the time for myself to heal and to do my well-being. Otherwise, so I had to scale things right back. Otherwise, I mean, I wouldn't be a good mum. I would, I might be selling lots of pieces of jewellery for a lower price being made in China, but that would just, again, it would just all feel, didn't feel in flow, didn't feel aligned, just didn't feel right. Whereas this feels like I can do it. It's all kind of easy to manage and feels, I'm very lucky to be in an amazing environment on the houseboat. So I've got so much inspiration and just having that freedom to just not feel like I've got my head in a spreadsheet the whole time.
That's really nice. And as you said, it's really fortunate and fortunate, but also I think it's from your own doing as well that you've been able to go, okay, this is what I need, this is what my family need, and be able to make it happen. I think
Yeah.
that's really good to be deliberate about choices.
But it's also, you've got to make money because I'm going to put food on the table, but I've also got to maintain a business. But the other part has been, a little bit frustrating because I haven't been able to, because being completely honest, because the products are a slightly higher price point, and I haven't been able to put so much money into marketing because I haven't had the time because I've been dealing with my personal situation. That's meant that the profit that we do make ends up going onto the family rather than onto marketing to scale and scale and scale and grow and grow and grow. So that's something I'm going to be looking at in 2026, but it's worked for the time being. And I'm so grateful for the fact that the business is doing well still. And I've got a lovely core base of customers. But I think it's pivoting all the time, isn't it? Pivoting not just in the business, but in your personal life, and just making sure you've got your oxygen mask on the whole time. And whether that be for your well-being or whether that be for your business.
Definitely. And I think one thing I've got from listening to your story and the research I did before we spoke is that there have been so many different iterations and so many different phases you've been through. And I think we all have that as well, don't we? If we look back over our businesses, nothing ever stands still. And I think all of us listening we've already all got things we want to change for 2026. But I think that's good. It keeps things fresh. I feel like I personally wouldn't want to be doing the exact same thing I was doing 10 years ago because I feel like we change and our situations change. So therefore, our businesses need to change.
Yes, exactly. It's just another relationship that we need to nurture and also just find the joy in the whole time and maintain the creativity. I think that if sometimes with business, it can be just so hustle. I actually call it, I actually don't do that sort of hustle culture anymore. It just doesn't work for me. And I don't think it works for a lot of people. And I call it Zen hustling now. So I wake up in the morning and I go, right, what do I need what's the most important thing that I need today before I even think about the business? Because if I need to do a meditation with my crystals, or I need to go and walk the dog, have a run, or I need to just sit in a meditation, or actually want to just get all these emails done. I just follow what my heart is absolutely telling me, as opposed to strategy. I mean, anyone can write a strategy. Anyone can put a strategy together. Anyone. You can ask someone to put a strategy together for you. But if it doesn't feel aligned and it doesn't come from your heart, there's no point in having it because it will just stress you out.
I really like that, Anna. Thank you. I've got one final question before we finish, which is for anyone listening who feels overwhelmed, whether that's by stock, pricing, cash flow, personal situation, trying to keep their business going. Have you got one piece of advice you'd like to share to end on?
Yes, I would say contemplation. So I would make time, and that doesn't mean meditation. It could mean meditation, but contemplation goes a bit further, because actually, if we can contemplate on a moment, you could contemplate multiple times on the same topic or whatever it might be that you're contemplating on. You will end up getting the answer from inside your body, not from your head. So if you can contemplate until it comes up, it will come up. But you can only do that if you really are connected, body, mind, soul, heart and soul together, rather than just running from hustle culture head.
I love that, Anna. Thank you so much. And thank you for everything you've shared. So I'm
That's
going to put
okay.
the show note links to everything in the show notes. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. Do remember that you can get the full back catalogue and lots of free resources on my website, vickyweinberg.com. Please do remember to rate and review this episode if you've enjoyed it, and also share it with a friend who you think might find it useful. Thank you again, and see you next week. Hello, if you're a listener of Bring Your Product Idea to Life, you might like to know that I'm running a free call on Thursday the 26th of February for anyone who's selling products on Amazon or planning to and would like some practical support and a chance to talk things through together. I know so many Amazon sellers and I thought it'd be really nice to bring people together. It'll be a really relaxed session. I'll be sharing a few updates on upcoming Amazon changes, and there'll be plenty of time for questions and discussion about what's working, what's not, anything you want to chat about Amazon related. You're very welcome to come along and talk, or you can just listen in. I would love to see you there if you're able to join, and you'll find the link to book your place in the show notes for this episode.